Charles Crawford is an award-winning speechwriter and public speaking and negotiation expert. He served as a diplomat with 28 years of experience in the UK diplomatic service, mainly dealing with strategic policy issues such as communism and apartheid. He served as British ambassador to Poland, Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. He also wrote FCO's original guide to speechwriting. His book on leadership communication, Speeches for Leaders, was published in 2016. He has given many master classes and coaching sessions in public speaking and leadership skills to public and private sector clients. He has given a TED Talk on the physics of diplomacy and is interested in philosophy with the focus on Wittgenstein and language. Without further ado, I turn it over to our final presenter of the evening. Well, it could be evening for you, but it's morning for me. Mr. Charles Crawford, who will talk about what is protocol about and have some interaction for you at the end. Sir, over to you.
Right, I hope everyone can hear me. I've just been listening very avidly to the last two presentations, in particular, the one about interpreting and the one about cultural issues. Of course, you know, a lot of these things are all about that. It's how do people talk to each other. So I'm the comic turn before lunch or dinner or wherever it is you are. So I'm just going to do it slightly differently. I want everyone to be ready to click on the chat because I'm going to ask you questions and I need quick answers, not great expositions, yes or no, or number one or number two, or just a word in the case of the first question. So let me share my screen and off we'll go. Where are we here? Can you all see the first screen now? I hope you all can. What's protocol about? This seems like a sort of ridiculous question, but I think it's worth just going a little bit deeper. Oops, sorry. This is me, as the introduction kindly mentioned. I spent a lot of time in bilateral diplomacy. I wasn't at the UN or the EU or NATO or those sort of places. I was in country, so I spent a lot of time in the field dealing with these issues. And so when you're looking at a presentation like this, you always start with Shrek. And Shrek itself, actually, if you look at the movie, is a very good example of cultural difference on lots of different levels. But anyway, when you're watching Shrek, the first Shrek, he's walking through the field with a donkey, and Shrek says, ogres are like, and the answer is, who can get it first in the chat? Ogres are like onions, says Aniela, Shamil, probably everyone else. Everyone around the world seems to know the answer to this question. Ogres are like onions. And why are they like onions? Because they have, quickly in the chat, they have layers, says Nicholas. Very good. They have layers. And the point about protocol is that it has layers. And I'm just going to take you through the three basic layers of protocol. The sort of, what is the purpose of protocol really is to help senior people communicate. And it can be diplomats, it can be world leaders, it can be business people, it can be, you know, anyone, but it's basically about this. And this goes right back a long way to this very distinguished Chinese philosopher, you know, what's that now, 2000 something, 300 years ago, very, very long time ago. And he said this: faithfully conveying messages is the most difficult task under the heavens. Speak the truth, don't embellish it. If truth is lost, trust is lost. The messenger himself may be imperiled. So for 2,500 years, we've had this idea of how leaders communicate honestly and frankly. And fast forward a couple of thousand years and you come to Queen Elizabeth I. And the new ambassador of Poland came to see her. And the first thing he did when he presented his credentials was start basically complaining about British trade policy towards Poland. And she replied in Latin, and I'm sure everyone here knows Latin. quam decepta fui expectevi legationem, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, if you don't know Latin, she said, how I am deceived. I expected a diplomatic mission, but you brought me a quarrel. I marvel at such great, unprecedented public impertinence. So there you are. There's the Queen of England talking in Latin, having a sharp word with the Polish ambassador when he turned up, giving those messages. And this is the document I got when I was appointed a diplomat. This is signed by the Queen. You can see her signature in the top right-hand corner. And what's interesting about it is the language she uses, to all and singular to whom these presents, blah, 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 whereas it appears, blah, 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 blah. It's language which probably would have been recognizable more or less 700 or 800 years ago. These very formal ways of communicating have got a very long shelf life. And that's because they work, basically. So one of the first layers of protocol is that it works at this level. So the next question is, okay, there's the idea, there's a sort of point of protocol, but what about the sort of way you do it? And this is the key idea as far as I'm concerned. Embassies or international organizations or people organizing a conference, whatever it is, are guests in a host country. And the thing is this, guests respect hosts and hosts respect guests. This is the key idea of it all. And when I invite you to my house, I can imagine if anybody listening to this presentation, if you invited me to your house, you'd have certain expectations wherever you are in the world about what I do. I don't open every cupboard. I don't try on your clothes. I don't drink all your wine. I don't set up a casino in my bedroom. There aren't any rules laying this down. There's no list of things I have to sign. There's no contract. It's just that we all understand it. And similarly, guests have responsibility towards hosts. Guests and hosts each have responsibilities to each other. So a host, if I'm a guest in your house, you won't open my letters. You won't look through my suitcase. You won't be looking through the guest bedroom keyhole to see what I'm up to in the bedroom. So in other words, there's quite a subtle code of conduct, effectively, between guests and hosts. And that's really what diplomacy and protocol basically are all about when it comes down to it. And my sense is that if you remember this simple relationship between guests and hosts, that takes you an awful long way. Because as the previous speaker said, it's about common sense and good manners. And that implies a certain amount of cultural, at least not exactly sophistication, but a cultural friendly sensitivity and friendly curiosity about people from other parts of the world. And these ideas, respect, privacy, reciprocity. So if you're in the front line of a protocol issue, or you're organizing an event, if you just bear these things in mind, you don't need great detailed rules on how to lay everything out. Just think about this, and most of the things that count will flow from these principles. And a different way of looking at it is this: no one feels uncomfortable. You don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. Right, so there's the general point of protocol. There's some of the general principles of protocol. What, in fact, when you get down to doing protocol, this is the heart of my presentation, are the key things to think about. And of all these things on the list, what would everyone type up as the most powerful factor, if you like, force in diplomacy? How would people answer these questions? Which of these ones would you choose? Can anyone put that in the chat quickly? See what people say. Reciprocity, respect, very good. Reciprocity, respect, 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 reciprocity, respect, 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 respect. Clarity, that's not on, that is on the list, very good. Clarity, that's very important. Respect. Okay, I will tell you what the right answer is. And the right answer is this: stupidity. Because when things go wrong, it's because of this sort of idiotic inability to see the bigger picture. I'll put it, look, I even put it first so you can see it. Stupidity is such a powerful force in protocol and in diplomacy. Here's a good example. They had the revolution in Romania some 30 years ago now, and when they overthrew communism and Ceausescu, and the symbol of the revolution in Romania was this flag with a hole cut in the middle, the national flag with the communist symbol cut out. So when the president of Romania a few years later went to see President Clinton, he took a flag with him, one of the flags from the revolution, and presented it to him as a symbol of how much Romania respected America's support for democracy in Romania. And they got back a very nice letter from the White House a little while later saying, "Thank you for the beautiful poncho." The people in the White House protocol section who got this thing had no idea what it was. And so they thought, well, it's a cloth with a hole in the middle. It must be a poncho. And so they sent a nice letter back to Bucharest saying, "Thank you for the beautiful poncho," which the president gave to our president. So you can see how even at the highest level, and I've got dozens of examples of this, completely ridiculous things happen because of, you can call it stupidity, carelessness, clarity, you can call it whatever you want, but there's a sort of factor in there which leads to disaster. Now, you might think President Putin, with all his KGB training, would be someone who can not encounter this sort of thing. But I urge you to watch his face very closely in the following video. You know, all his KGB training had to be brought into play there to stop him reacting to that massacring of his national anthem. You know, what on earth was going on with the people who practiced that national anthem? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say whether it's lack of cultural intelligence. I mean, it seems to me lack of musical intelligence, or indeed lack of music completely. But this is the point, really. At very high levels, the very, very highest levels, things can go wrong. Right, now, what I want to do now is give you 3 practical examples. I've got this protocol quiz, which I've used with the United Nations and other people, giving specific examples of protocol dilemmas. And I'm going to give you the examples, and I'm going to give you the multiple choice options. All you have to choose is one of the options. And then I'll tell you what the right answer is. So you are the missions protocol officer. The minister is visiting, your minister is visiting. You're asked to carry the minister's suitcase to his or her hotel because he or she has a meeting in another hotel. So you take the suitcase into the room and you trip on the carpet and you knock over a large vase of flowers, splashing dirty water onto the minister's suitcase. Heavens above, what the hell have I done? Maybe some water got into the suitcase, you're thinking. This is a disaster for you as the protocol officer. You've splashed the minister's case with dirty water. Right, what do you do? Do you mop up the mess without opening the case, ask the hotel to clean the room, and call the minister's team to say what's happened? So the first option is you don't open the case. The second option is you open the case. You take out anything that's wet or damaged, and you ask the hotel to clean up, and then you call the minister's team. Or you ignore the suitcase, ask the hotel to clean the room quickly, call the minister's team. Or you take the wet suitcase quickly to the hotel manager's office and ask for advice or help. Right, you have to choose 1, 2, 3, or 4. People put in the chat, what do people choose? So far, I've got quite a lot of 1s. We've got 1 or 2 2s. We've got quite a lot of 4s. We've got 1 or 3. Come on, keep going. Quick, 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 quick. Oh, the 3s are catching up now. You see people sweating out there all around the planet. Okay, we've got a wide spread of options. I think, without any doubt whatsoever, the right answer is number 2. You open the case and take out anything which is wet or damaged. Now, you're going to say, but what about privacy? Well, fine. What about privacy? And the answer to that partly is the minister's left the case in a hotel open, so anyone in the hotel can open it. But the point is that what you're trying to do is make sure that if the minister is going to see the president tomorrow and has got a beautiful new suit or a beautiful new dress, it's not ruined. The other ones are all okay in one sense or another, but I think the one which is the right thing to do for the protocol officer is just check that you haven't made anything worse. All the other options risk making a bad situation worse. So let's look at the next one. You're the mission's protocol officer again. Your first language is French, or any other language you like, doesn't matter. The head of mission gives you complicated, oral, urgent instructions in English for the minister's visit. The minister's arriving later today. So this afternoon, the minister's coming. Head of mission tells you what to do. You understand most of the instructions, but you don't understand all of them. And now the head of mission is in a meeting with a senior visitor. So what do? Do you interrupt the meeting and check exactly what she or he meant to say? Do you carry out the instructions you did understand and leave the others until the head of mission is free after the meeting? Do you ask the deputy for advice? Or do you just sit and wait until the head of mission is free and then you completely confirm the instructions? Right, you've got 1, 2, 3, or 4, go. Quite a lot of 3s coming up. 1 or 2 2s, 1 or 2 1s. 2, 3, anyone else? 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4. Anyone else, quickly? Right, I'll tell you the right answer. The absolute wrong answer is 2. Because you'll say, why is the wrong answer 2? Because if you didn't understand all the instructions, you don't know whether you understood the instructions you understood. Because some of the instructions may have had to be done in parallel, as it were, or in conjunction with something you didn't understand. So number 2 is, I think, just the worst thing to do, because you're hoping for the best. The right answer, I think, of course, is 1. You go into the meeting, you tap on the door, you say, dear Ambassador, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt. Something's come up involving the minister's visit. Is it okay if we just have a very quick word? And asking DHM for advice is hopeless because the DHM won't know what's on the head of mission's mind, and doing nothing until the head of mission is free risks just delaying things. You've got to get on with it. So again, this comes down to a lot of cultural issues. In some cultures, it is absolutely impossible to open the case. That would just be something that would make your head explode if you even thought about it, because privacy for the boss is such an overriding value. And similarly, there will be places around the world where interrupting the boss's meeting is a serious disaster. And you just literally can't do that. You couldn't physically bring yourself to tap on the door because that would just be somehow seen as disrespectful. It's almost better to mess up the visit than be disrespectful to your boss. So I think this ties in nicely with the previous speaker, but in my space, the space I live in, I would expect my people to open the case and I would expect my people to interrupt the meeting. Not because it's a great answer, it's because anything else could make a situation worse. Right, last one. You're the ambassador this time, accompanying the minister and the team at a meeting with the local prime minister from Batuma, a made-up country, discussing local corruption. This is a sensitive issue. And you understand the local language, but everyone else is using the interpreter provided by the prime minister's team. The prime minister loses control, gets angry, says he'll sack 2 officials. And the Batuma interpreter knows that the prime minister has lost control and does not interpret that passage, just leaves it out completely. So you are the only person on your side who knows exactly what was said. You see the setup here. Right, what are your choices? Number 1, do nothing but brief the minister afterwards on what the prime minister said. Number 2, interrupt the meeting. Excuse me, Madam Mr. Interpreter, please could you translate accurately what the prime minister said at that last exchange? Or you might pass a little note to the minister along the table saying what was said, or you might propose a 5-minute break, or pass a note to the minister proposing a 5-minute break and then brief the minister and his team on what the Prime Minister said, or you might just forget it, but make a formal complaint to the Prime Minister's office after the meeting. So guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, go. Oh, we're getting some, what are we getting here? 3, 4, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 3, 3, 5, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. Anyone else quickly? Right, this is going to shock you. The right answer, I think, is do nothing and brief the colleagues afterwards on what the Prime Minister said. Now, I did this quiz with the UN, and actually on the other side of the, and there are like 20 questions in the quiz. They're all like this. These are some of the sort of more better ones for this presentation. But the former head of UN protocol from New York, I mean, the fellow at the top of global protocol, was there as one of the other trainers, and he disagreed with me on this. He said, no, I think you've got to maybe do 3 or 4. He said, what you can't do is nothing. And this happened to me in Bosnia. Exactly this situation. I was the only one on our side of the table who understood what President Izetbegovic said. He lost his temper. The interpreter deliberately misinterpreted him. I knew her. I knew what was going on. I just decided to leave it. Now, why did I do that? Because any of the other options, 2, 3, or 4, basically involve embarrassing the Prime Minister in front of very senior people, because you're basically saying your interpreter is corrupt or stupid. Don't embarrass the Prime Minister, especially if you are the person who's going to have to stay in the country after the minister has gone and deal with the Prime Minister. You don't want to end up embarrassing the Prime Minister. And in the end, it's a meeting. And the key thing is that your side know what was said, and separately, the Prime Minister can follow up afterwards saying, you know, just confirming that the 2 officials were going to be sacked, and you can do it that way. So I just left it, and I think that was the right answer. And if this happened, I would do that again. Why do I mention all this? This is Prince Michael of Kent. He's the member of the British royal family who looks like Tsar Nicholas, the last Tsar of Russia, who was assassinated, of course. I had the very important job of opening and closing Prince Michael of Kent's briefcase at the Sarajevo Olympic Games in the hotel, and I managed to break it in that process. Stupidity, you know, lack of sort of ability to think on your feet and look at the big picture in the heat of battle, as it were. It's very, very specific things like this which make a huge difference one way or the other. Protocol. Someone was giving a definition of protocol a few minutes ago, Ambassador Hakim, I think. This is my definition of protocol: the fine art of choosing the least horrible option.